Hello and welcome back to the Public Eye Business Podcast brought to you by Granite Exchange. Lovely to see you again. My name is Sarah Travers. I'm your host, and throughout this series I'll be speaking with local entrepreneurs and business owners to learn more about how their companies have come to be, to gain insight into their growth and find out how they continue to innovate. So, wherever you get your podcasts from, remember to keep an eye out for all new episodes and subscribe to stay up to date. Today, I'm joined in the studio by Naomh McElhatton, who is the founder and CEO of Dara & Co. Naomh, it's so great to see you.
Thank you so much. I'm great, and thank you for having me. It's a great excuse to catch up, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And for those of you who don't know, as I said, Naomh is the founder and CEO of Dara & Co., which is a digital well-being platform created to help people and support people build healthier relationships with themselves and others. Now, with over 20 years of experience in the industry, Naomh is known for her expertise previously in digital strategy and implementation, as well as for driving innovation and growth for businesses. She's worked with a wide range of clients from startups to Fortune 500 companies, helping them to navigate the changing digital landscape and achieve their goals. Naomh is also a sought-after speaker and writer and regularly shares her insights on digital trends and best practices and on well-being with audiences around the world. Naomh, you and I actually go back a long way. I've met you so many times over the years, and what I love about you is your energy and your ability to keep creating. You are innovation in a nutshell.
Yeah, I think that comes with being labelled a serial entrepreneur or just a complete chancer.
Yep.
Do you know?
Whichever way you want to put, what spin you put on it.
What spin you put on it, yeah. And funny, everybody says that to me, and now you just accept it. You're right, you're just yourself, right? And I just love... I love what I do, and I love the opportunities that come my way, and I think, well, if there's something to be gained from this, let's give it a go.
So you say you're just yourself. So who is Naomh McElhatton?
Oh, that's a very interesting, very serious question. So I am just a girl. I'm in denial. I'm not a woman yet. I'm not a woman till I'm over 50.
All right, stop there. Right.
No, I'm just Naomh. I am the mummy of two gorgeous teenage daughters, and there's nothing special about Naomh McElhatton, really. I'm just a girl who enjoys her work and loves the crack.
So what was your career path then?
Well, that's interesting. So I actually went to Trinity to read theatre studies initially in the Samuel Beckett Centre. And I remember somebody saying to me, are you going to be an actress waitress or a waitress actress? Right? And it was the most defining moment when I was 18, because I thought, gosh, this is a serious question here. So I was like, it's so competitive. And I was in university with some of the most amazing talent, like Ruth Negga. Do you know Ruth, the actress? She was shortlisted for an Oscar. Like this is the calibre of people that were in my class.
So you wanted to be an actress, did you?
I think so, yeah. Like it's so far away now. But all through my teen years, I was so into performing arts, and my gorgeous godfather, God bless him, Uncle Charlie, who passed earlier this year, was a massive inspiration to me getting into that. So whilst I didn't the thought of even doing it now scares me, but the confidence that doing that at that age has stood by me, because I could stand on the stage and talk, not a bother, and the confidence it instills in you for stages and public speaking and everything else hasn't been lost. But after Trinity, I went to Strawberry Hill to do teaching, actually. So I did my BA in drama and my QTS in primary school teaching, and quickly realised that primary school teaching was not my vocation.
So why? Was it the patients?
No, it was the little people who, this is not even a lie. And 1 week in PT, I was in St. Joseph's in Kingston, and I had this gorgeous child vomit over me. I had another child trip, fall, and then they had a bloody nose over me. And then I remember this little boy, God bless him, he couldn't say, "Miss, I want to go to the toilet," so he kind of danced around me, and then there was just a little puddle at her feet, and I thought, no.
So you had it all?
All in 1 week, and I was like, nah, This is not for me. You're all gorgeous, but not for me. So I was at this stage, I think if I told my parents that I was leaving university, they would actually disown me. So I was loving life in Twickenham, loving life in Richmond and Surrey. It was beautiful. And I got a job selling advertising for a newspaper, like literally classified ads. And, you know, back in the day for painters and houses to rent and all of that. So that's what I started, was selling advertising and classified ads in the Richmond Twickenham Times newspaper.
And did that light your fire?
I love people, right? So I love the crack, love learning people's stories. Like I probably would have been a brilliant journalist. I'm that nosy. And loved hearing people's stories. And actually what happened from the paper was there was a job for a waitress stroke assistant events coordinator at the Polo Club in Ham, which was just outside Richmond. And I got a job there. And like, can you imagine being 19, 20, going to work at the Polo Club? Like, I mean, it was a game changer for me.
A different world.
A different world. Just like the Royals would be playing there, and I met them all. And, you know, this is in their natural habitat. There was no pretense. Everybody was just there to play chuckas on a Tuesday and a Thursday, play an old polo match on a Sunday. So I got my eyes open to a whole new education there, and it was the game changer for me.
Gosh, so what happened next?
So came home, a really good dose of Catholic guilt. At 23, I thought I needed a man, a mortgage and a licence. So I come home, do you know that old stigma? Like genuinely. So I come home and met a great guy who I married and had 2 beautiful kids too, and got the mortgage and got the driver's licence.
Tick, tick, tick.
Yes, until my 30s, and then that all went Pete Tong. But no regrets. It was you know, a great time. And then I come home and got a job with Ulster Business Magazine and stayed with the old advertising sales. Got a job at a radio station, worked in radio for 4 years. And then when I went to have Aoife Lilly, my eldest girl, fell into a startup. And then, like, genuinely, the rest is history. That was it.
Yeah, and that's really where you found your spiritual home.
100%.
That's why I said you are that serial entrepreneur, that innovator, and just helping things grow from an idea.
Yeah, yeah. And funny, David Mead said that one day. I spoke at the Chartered Accountants event, and David said, "You're literally just an ideas box." And that is a gift. Like, I'd be very creative. And, you know, I would see ideas in everything, you know, and sometimes you have to rein it in, because my mind just goes, oh, and we could do this, and we could do this, and we could do this, and we could do this. And then it's like the voice of Tina McKenzie in my head saying, Naomh, stick to your knitting. Always stick to your knitting. And that has stood by me for a number of years. It's like, stick to what you're good at, stick to what the plan is, you know, because being a creative and being entrepreneurial, you see the opportunity in everything, right? Or we could do this, or we could make this better, or if we added this layer or whatever. But no,
I'm the polar opposite to you. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
I might even be scared of the knitting at times, you know, and that's a terrible way to be.
I think as an entrepreneur, though, you have to be fearless, you know, and, you know, not to get all depressive in this podcast, but like, when I was made bankrupt in 2014, 2015 with a first disastrous fail, it was the most grounding thing ever, because it builds that resilience in you, that you learn that you can get through anything. And for me, when it comes to business, the worst thing that will happen is that I'll have to get another job. And that's always the go-to. So what's your worst case? And if you can deal with worst case, you can deal with anything.
And I don't want to dwell on the past, because we're here really to talk about this fabulous Dara and Co. But I would like to pick up on that. You had built a business. You were employing people. It was going well. What do you think happened?
Oh, no, not think. I know exactly what happened. Our business model wasn't robust enough. Google, so Danny was the first company which we spun the Danny Awards out of and everything, which were incredible.
Wonderful events.
For 10 years, like, we had such an amazing time. And like, it's only in reflection now, you think, like, that was so cutting edge then, like digital awards, you know, and we were still trying to get our head around the whole world of online.
You were ahead of your time, really.
So, do you know what? We were. And even like, you know, the advertising network, like, we had launched before Google had launched the Google Display Network. Do you know what I mean? And you don't You don't take that on board sometimes until you actually sit back and have a conversation like this. And they come on, and like we were charging £10 per 1,000. This is a kind of buying metric for advertising space online, where they were charging 5p. So the technology, the scale, the global reach they had, like we were in Pomeroy in Tyrone. Do you know what I mean? So there was no competing with it. And then everything just escalated, you know, staff costs, you know, HMRC. There was a lot of escalating costs, and it just spiraled out of control to the point where I couldn't afford to keep the doors open, and then that's when it went down. And then in my naivety, like I was only 26, 27, you know, in the early days of that, I signed a personal guarantee, and that came back to bite me in the bum. And that's when I was served with a bankruptcy order, because I signed a personal guarantee. So to anybody listening here, just be so careful. Like I would never sign a PG now in business whatsoever.
Well, that's great advice. And, you know, it's really good to have such a frank and open and honest discussion. Yeah. Because many people sit here, oh, go for it, do it. I mean, do you have any regrets around that time, apart from the signing of that particular piece of paper?
No, because I don't think we could have, or I could have done any more than I did try to do. Like I was always trying to commercialise the business, come up with ideas to salvage the business. Probably the most disappointing thing for me was the team, actually. The girls that I had looked after for years completely disowned me after it, because I wasn't feeding, you know, their wages anymore. And I would love the opportunity to sit down with those girls now and actually explain where I was at that time. Yeah. You know, and that makes me sad, because we had such amazing memories, and I was very good to the team at the time. But
what could you do?
Nothing. Yeah. And actually, you know, I had 2 very young children. I was going through a separation, and I'd just been made bankrupt. So like life wasn't great, do you know? And I would love to sit down and actually talk through that with those girls. Say, you know, I don't think you really grasped just the situation that I was in personally. And I was just trying to keep the lights on and to, you know, pay rent at that stage, because the house had gone and everything else. So it was horrendous. But you know, in all of that, huge opportunity came out of it, because when you are at rock bottom, the only way is up. So for me, like I'm a fighter, like I'll not lie down.
Oh,
you know,
you are.
Do you know? And I was like, it was a massive learning experience. And I've told this story before many times with women in business, but I remember John Gordon, bless him, who worked for Napier's at the time. He was an insolvency practitioner. And I obviously started to cry in his office, because I thought my life was over. Like I'd lost everything. I'd lost the business, all my energy, everything I put into. It was traumatic. I was only like in my early 30s at that stage. So I was dealing with a lot at that age. And I started to cry. And poor John had no idea what to do. And you know those big industrial rolls of like blue sandpaper tissue that you dry your hands on? That's all John had. Oh. And he handed it to me, and as I buried my face in this blue tissue, John was like, I know this hurts right now, but this is going to be the best thing that you'll come through. And that has stayed with me that whole time. So when I am against the wall now, like in another startup, it's like, we can do this. You got to pursue. You're much cuter now. You're much more savvy now. Like this is my 5th startup, and there's so many lessons learned along the way. And you learn, it tightens you. There's no point in saying it doesn't, but there's a brilliant book, and it's called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. It's by Ben Horowitz, and it talks about being a CEO. And the best line that he ever said in it, and excuse the upcoming expletive, it says, don't nibble on shit. And it's literally, you got to discuss the hard things. You got to say there's problems, and you can see it, because you see the whole 360 as CEO. It's your job. And I always remember, like, one of my most amazing mentors, and I've mentioned her name already, was Tina McKenzie. And Tina said to me, are you always so positive? I was like, actually, yeah. And she's, you know, but you don't have to be all the time. You know, you can say it as it is. I said, but I am. And sometimes you can be really positive and optimistic, but the reality has to come with that. And
so you're feeling rubbish, and you're lying there and you're crying and doing all of that, but you're still thinking, no, I'll get through this.
Yeah. And
you're just dealing with what you're dealing with.
Correct. And you just take it one day at a time, and you can only control the controllable. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's so important, because one of the things over the years that I've learned is that I tried to control things that were beyond my control. And when you learn to let go, oh, it's a liberating place to be.
If it's our pain or a drain, let it go.
Yeah.
Or acceptance as well is the
Absolutely.
other thing. Was John right? Was that the best thing that ever happened to you?
100%. Like, absolutely. It gave me breathing space. Like, you don't realise, like, when you're under so much pressure, like, at the end of the day, the buck stops with you as the boss. So when that door is knocking and people are looking paid and people are looking money, and like, the threats that I got, personal threats, and it was horrendous. But the pressure that you're put under to deliver something that you can't deliver, and actually working with Napiers, and this is not a plug for them because I hope I never have to use their practice ever again. But I remember like saying, oh, well, when I get back on my feet, I'll pay this. Or when I get back on my feet, like I'll maybe make a payment plan. And they were like, Naomh, this is business. The reason you're going through this pain is to get rid of this debt. So draw a line under it. You do not owe that person anything. And I remember one person, when I got back up on my feet again with Rua, coming saying, oh, delighted to see you're back. Here's the invoice for such and such. And I was so liberated when I sent that email saying, oh, thanks so much for your kind words. Unfortunately, that debt died with the old company. Take care. And I would never have had the confidence. Oh, no way. I'd be like,
Well, there's a lot of stigma around that. And, I think even in, Northern Ireland and in country areas.
100%. And it was the most liberating thing to be able to do. And to know that I wasn't playing games or I wasn't dodging a bullet. I literally had come through all of that pain to let it go.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, because you're so proud of what you do, and I take great pride in everything that I do. And like, I felt like such a failure. I felt like my marriage was gone. I was a failure. I let my family down. I let my girls down. The business failed. the bankruptcy came. Can you imagine like feeling such a loser? And that took a long time to get over, because moving forward, even then to, future projects, there was always that niggling fear behind me going, oh, you're a loser. It's going to fail. You're going to fail again, and it wasn't until I actually went and got some counselling, totally random, but I got sick in Dubai in December 2017 and took like PTSD from it, because I thought, like, dramatic much. I thought I was going to die in Dubai, and I thought, how are mummy and daddy going to get me home? Like, literally, this is where I was. And in March 2018, in my sleep, I thought my heart was stopping, and like really severe, like messed up, because I'd never had anxiety. I'd never dealt with mortality. I'd never, you'd never think of things like this.
This was the trauma that you've been through all coming out now.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to see an amazing guy for counselling, and I said to him, there's stuff going on in my head that isn't normal, and you need to help me. So we went right back and started to unravel all of the trauma. He said, Naomh, if you keep pushing all of that under the rug, he said, of course it's going to explode at some stage, because there's no room left for any more. He said, you're living in the past. He says, but failure is not your future. He said, you can be grounded and successful. He said, and you should start celebrating your successes. Because I look like, at all the accolades that I've had over the years, shortlisted as one of Ireland's top 5 entrepreneurs, top 40 under 40, different accolades, an entrepreneur of the year, business personality, all these amazing things. And you never stop and say, kudos to you, girl. Like, well done. I never once stopped and thought, God, Naomh, fair play, or good on you. I never give myself credit for anything that I achieved, because all I lived in was the past failures. And for me, that has been my biggest learning over the past couple of years, has actually to stop and take stock of everything I've achieved. It mightn't have been massive financial gain yet, but it's like you still have to give yourself kudos for getting through it.
So how do you do that? When do you celebrate the win? When do you allow yourself to go, kudos to you, girl?
Well, actually, so this year I was awarded Most Inspirational Woman in STEM, which was the biggest shock of my life, because I knew I was shortlisted for Entrepreneur of the Year, right? And so that just fits the bill for me as an entrepreneur. And STEM, I remember at the awards saying to Grania, my daughter Ailish, who was with me, God, wouldn't it be deadly to win STEM, because I'm so immersed in that space. So never, like literally had just said it, and the STEM award was coming up, and the entrepreneur was the award after the STEM award. So I'm sitting chatting away going, God, I wonder who's in here, you know, and whatever. And Frank Mitchell reads out, and the shortlisted for Women in STEM is Dr. such and such and Naomh McElhatton and so. And I was like,
so you didn't even know you were in the shortlist?
No,
for this?
not at all. So this is why it was so sweet. So anyway, the winner is me.
Oh.
And I would have loved a camera to have been on my face, because the sheer shock of that at that particular time. And all I remember was Ailish going, oh yeah, go mummy.
Oh.
And I went up to the stage to get the award. Like, I can't even remember it. It was genuinely such a shock, right? And Ailish and I, the following Monday, I was taking her up to her dad's, and her and I always do like a reflection. So you're asking me how I get. So I always try to practice gratitude, and I know that sounds so 2024, right? But I think if you don't take stock of what the good things are in your life, you miss the boat there. So Ailish and I would, and they'll hate me saying this, but when I take the girls up the road, you know, I'll say, well, what was your favourite part of the weekend? Or, you know, what were you grateful for this weekend? And, you know, and I always would give them positive affirmations before they get out of the car. And I'd say, what are you? And reluctantly, they'd be like, amazing. And then, what are you? Beautiful. You know, and I do this, and I will continue to do this. And I said, always be kind, you know.
Lovely.
And do that. Like, and they hate it, but like, and it's a joke now, but I know it's gone into their subconscious. And this weekend after the award, I said to Ailish, what was your favourite part of the weekend? And she said, watching you going up on stage to get your award. Well, I swear to God, my heart melted, and I thought, you know what? That's it.
Yeah.
That's it for me, is showing Ailish you can do anything, you know, anything you set your mind to, anything you want to be, just go for it. And I genuinely believe that. Go for it.
Pride that she had seeing her mummy up there, sure, that's just wonderful.
Well, that's what it's all about.
So let's talk about Dara and
Yes.
Co. We've gone back.
Down the archives there.
We sure did there.
That wasn't planned.
Well, you know, thank you for sharing that, because I do think it's invaluable to listeners, maybe existing entrepreneurs, and those who are thinking, am I going to take the leap and do this? But
I think just on that, you'll regret it if you don't. If you do it and it fails, so what?
yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
totally.
what? Go again.
Yeah.
You know?
You'll always get another job, as
Correct.
you said. There will be something else. Dara and Co. Where did this all start?
Oh, this is my favourite startup. And like, I've had a few gorgeous moments with the previous companies, but I think everything I've done to date has taken me here. So I got involved in conversations with Dara actually back in November 2022. And
So who are Dara?
so Dara, right, in its infancy, for full transparency, was initially created as a dating app for the Irish globally, which is very exciting, right? And we will endeavour to look at that potentially as a second product down the line. But given where I was in 2022, I wasn't really into a dating app, and I wasn't really introducing women to any more men, right? Just, you might have been coming through a breakup. And I, in my self-righteousness, said to the board, I said, we need a world where people actually are more self-aware. We need to become more resilient. We need to toughen up to deal with life's challenges, right? I said, and we actually need to have confidence to communicate, because one of the things I've learned over the years, communication is everything. It doesn't matter if it's with your partner, with your team, with your kids, whatever. If you can't communicate and convey what it is you're feeling, what you want, forget about it. And one thing I've learned in relationships, because I'm very good at failing at that also, is if your values aren't aligned and you can't be completely honest with each other and say, this is me, this is where I'm at, I need your support, I would like you to do this, then it's not going to work, right? It's inevitable. It won't
Couldn't
work.
agree more. Yeah.
Right. And I remember hearing a fabulous thing, and it just made complete sense in any relationship. There's 3 things that you need: to be seen, to be heard, and to be celebrated. And if you're not, and it works in both, this isn't about me, this is about partnerships, you know, collectively. Yeah. And if one of those things is missing, it won't work fundamentally. So at that time, I was looking at post-pandemic, people had got really weird. Like, people didn't know how to talk to each other. Yeah. You know, people were like texting instead of having conversations, right? no eye contact, like looking up here, looking down at their feet. And I was like, whoa, I'm here.
This is so true.
Yeah. And I was like, sorry, what has happened to human connection here? How do we rebuild, our genuine human connections again? Because we lost this art of ability, this art of conversation. And then last year, Ireland was surveyed to be found the loneliest country in Europe.
That's right.
Right? So, in actual fact, in the States, when the Surgeon General announced this epidemic in the States, he said the impact of loneliness is worse for our well-being than obesity. And that's a massive statement for
the
the
real
US.
pandemic as well. Yeah.
100%. So this me being me, I was like, well, how do we fix this? How do we actually help people rebuild their confidence and actually say what it is they want to say? So this is the evolution of Dara and Co. was this whole kind of piece around how we educate people to build their confidence back, to improve their relationship with themselves first.
And that's key, isn't it? So
100%.
Again, that you're not just defining or being defined by the other people around you. That start with yourself.
Correct.
That self-awareness piece, but also then maybe strengths, weaknesses, how can I improve?
Correct. And that's even when we did our focus groups, because we did focus groups for about the first 6 months of 2023 before we even mapped out what it was we were building. And every single thing, it didn't matter what person we were speaking to, started with self. I wish I knew. I wish I could. I wish I did. I wish I had the courage to. I wish I travelled. Me. Everything started with self. And that's where it has to. Because if you're not comfortable with yourself, or you're not happy with yourself, and we had this conversation offline, you will not be the best version of yourself. And you need to take time. And the only person, and I know I'm sounding all Mel Robbins here, but the only person you go on this journey with completely is yourself. So why would you not allow yourself to be the best version of you? Or why would you not take the time to invest in yourself so that you actually feel good? Life's too short not to.
So how then do you help? That's a super idea. How do you, one, make that work for your customers, and, how do you make money?
Yeah. So we went back to looking at, well, what is it people need support with? So this was part of our focus group, was to understand where people were. So Dara & Co. is all about personalisation. It's about meeting that person where they're at. So your set of needs is completely different to my set of needs. And this is where the whole technology play comes into it. So whenever we started talking to people, they might be dealing with parenting, they might be dealing with caring for an elderly loved one, they might be financially anxious, they might be dealing with some relationship troubles, they might be dealing with addiction, they might be dealing with and the list goes on. The reality is, it wasn't just one of those things, it was a multitude of things. So how do we support people with actually expert insights and resources to support them, to bring reassurance to them? Because I even go back to my own kind of troubles, when I was separated. Like, can you imagine the stigma being attached to being 30, 31, 32, failed marriage in a rural Tyrone area? Like, that was horrific, and my family are amazing, but I have never felt as isolated on my own.
Who do you talk to? Who
Yeah.
else is the same as you? Who knows what this is like?
100%. And I actually remember going to the priest. Like, I thought, am I Maureen O'Hara out of The Quiet Man here?
Don't laugh.
No, but it's true. But this is what we were dealing with. So I was like, I never want anybody to feel that isolated or abandoned, because when I actually finally met people like my tribe, and then I told my story, they were like, oh, you think that's bad? Well, let me tell you a story worse. So all of a sudden, that shared experience, you're like, oh my God, so I wasn't on my own. So that's what we want to bring to Dara & Co.
So who's your tribe then? Where do you find your tribe through Dara & Co?
Well, you can actually, and that's what we're looking to build, is a huge community around this. So going back to the actual focus of the business. So there's 3 content pillars that we focus on: personal growth, well-being, and relationships, and everything that falls underneath that. So we're commercialising the business in 3 pillars. You can go on as an individual and subscribe. It's not expensive. We have built some really cool tech with ECU, so like getting into the whole world of AI, which is my baby. And we are utilising AI technology to support people on their journey on Dara & Co, because there's no point in showing content that's irrelevant. So we're building some really cool, I suppose it's like nearly a virtual hug. So when you come on the platform, we'll support you through it. So the world that we live in today, everybody's an expert, everybody's a life coach, everybody's, a well-being guru. And that's the world that Instagram and TikTok has delivered. But that's all completely unvalidated, right? And so when you're really looking for help, and I've said this a few times, do you know when you're maybe mending a broken heart, and it's like the words of a song don't mean something until they do. Oh, yeah. So if that resonates with you, you think, oh, that's right, that's me. Oh, what she said, that's me. Oh, yes. My God, that's me. And that's actually probably not the advice you need to hear. So how do we bring shared experience, expert resource and insight? So we're working with the most amazing pool of doctors, clinicians, psychologists, behavioural change scientists. Like, it's all science and research backed. So when you come to Dara & Co, we'll tell you a story about solo parenting. We'll talk about body dysmorphia. We'll talk about financial planning. But we'll tell the story of this happened to me and I felt like this. And at the end of every article, you'll get expert advice. You'll get signposted. So we're there to help you on your journey. So it's a validated experience as opposed to you going on to a social media channel and grasping at straws to find an answer because you're in need.
What strategies would you say have been crucial to the growth of Dara & Co?
Do you know what? Being agile. We only launched in January, and when we launched, it was very much about the individual. And as a commercial head on now, it's easier to sell to many than to one. So we have developed an employee wellbeing platform. There was some amazing research from Queen's actually just released by an amazing girl, Juliet Hazard, that the 1 in 6 people suffer mental health. 1 in 6, that's colossal. Mm-hmm. And it costs the UK employers alone 51 billion a year on the cost. Now, I quoted that before and I said 51 million because I thought that was extraordinary. 51 billion it costs employers with staff costs, absenteeism, long-term sick, lack of productivity, business performance. All of these things have a knock-on effect. And it's just getting worse. It is. And there needs to be an intervention because we're letting it spiral. Yeah. So there needs to be more intervention there to actually deal. So our employee wellbeing platform is about supporting the employees deal with the personal problems that impact their productivity. And that's a huge piece of work because you think about it, right? You're dealing with, maybe a sick parent, kids, education, life. You're dealing with life. And you're so overwhelmed, but yet you're to go into work in the morning with a smile on your face and pretend everything's rosy in the garden. And in actual fact, you're dreading going home because you know what waits for you. Mm-hmm. So how do we bring some solace into that? How do we deal with those issues one step at a time to support that person actually identify where they're at, to meet them where they're at, and to give them those resources to say, right, okay, have you thought about X, Y, and Z? And sometimes when you share that experience, all of a sudden the light bulb goes on and says, this is me. This can help me. And that's what Dara & Co is all about.
The wellbeing industry and mental health now has become big business.
Yeah.
There's competition out there. Yeah. How do you stand out from the crowd?
Well, it's completely saturated, right? And there's a lot of snake oil salesmen out there as well. And a lot of people have identified that very quickly. And it kind of scares me as well. For me, we call it toxic positivity. This whole world of being well, eat well, there's so much pressure on people. And our USP is not about forcing people to set goals, not about tracking, not about putting them under pressure. It's about supporting them form better habits. Mm. So we really get into the nitty gritty and go into the granular level of topics. So one case study we did lately with a manufacturing company, 89% of the respondents in this particular case study told us about the personal problems that were impacting their productivity at work and the stress that they felt under to deliver that. So bringing support, dealing with those really difficult situations. So we had one that was talking about coming back to work after failed IVF. There was erectile dysfunction on a man's confidence. There was going back to work after a miscarriage in men, and there's all of these things that we take for granted. As a guy whose wife has maybe lost their baby.
So it's like those different perspectives on a situation.
100%. all different perspectives.
And ripples throughout all families and relationships.
Yeah. And it's important to deal with them head on, because these are serious things that people have to deal with, and it's very easy to forget. And currently in the marketplace, you have a lot of, one size fits all, or it's kind of generic resources, which are fine, but not impactful. So one of the big metrics that we focus on is user engagement and consumption. And I've said this before, it's like if we have millions of articles and nobody's reading it, it's completely worthless. So the trick is for us to grow the business is at those user consumption rates and the metrics of people actually engaging in the platform. So that's really important to us.
And you're getting good engagement at the minute?
So far, so good. Now we're evolving, and we're launching a new domain which is specifically for employees in the middle of September. And then our student wellbeing platform launches. We're doing a pilot in Belfast, and it launches in October. So it's iteration. It's, again, it goes back to, where do we need to, we could do this, and we could do this, and we could do this. Add this in, make it sparkle, make it shine. But it's literally getting it right, and having gone through an activation of the 8 going into month 9 now, the biggest thing that I've learned is to listen. You got to listen to what your customers want. You got to listen to what people need. So there's no point in me saying, God, this would be great, if there's absolutely no need for it.
Go back to that knitting that Tina was talking about.
Correct. Stick to your knitting.
So tell me, who's the team then?
So I have an amazing team. There's 6 of us on the team at the minute. Elaine Burke is my editor-in-chief. Elaine's just a phenomenal girl. Not only is she such an experienced editor, but her world within the AI and tech world is phenomenal. So there's nothing this girl doesn't know. She actually keeps me right.
But that's what you need,
100%. Because I say, Elaine, we could talk about this, and Elaine say, absolutely not. So she's the gatekeeper of all content. Sense. 100%. Because I'm the dreamer, and Elaine's the realist. And then we have Chantel and Dee, who Dee's our online community manager. Dee manages the platform, and then our CTO Tim, and then our senior developer Sabir. So it's such an experienced team, and we have a WhatsApp group, and I pollute it every day with them. But the guys, we have a catch up every Tuesday. They're so energetic. They're so up for it. They bring their game to the table, and it's refreshing because we all have different skill sets. And at this early stage, it's really important that we put all of those ingredients into the table.
Is it a remote business? Does everybody work
separately?
Yeah,
we would try to come together as much as possible, but some of the girls are in Dublin. We've an office in Belfast. We've remote working space in Dublin. So I'm like the digital nomad. I'm up and down like a yo-yo. But as the team grows, absolutely, I'd like a nice space in Dublin at some point.
So time for the crystal ball gazing.
Okay.
Let's go forward 5 years. Where will Dara and Co be, do you think?
Well, I've thought about this because we're obviously fundraising at the minute, and do I want to be drinking rosé and eating Caesar salads in Antibes in 5 years because I've retired, or do I want to still be heavily involved driving it? I'd probably say in the next 3 years I would be up for an acquisition with Dara and Co, with another wellbeing platform. Because of the niche subject matter that we deal with, I think we fit very well into already existing EAPs, and we're already talking to a number of platforms that we could be integrated into. So I would look at an integration into an already really well established global player, or otherwise we'll just grow it as a really decent tech company that does really good work for people.
It is so exciting to talk to you, and I love the way your brain works, and I love the fact that, you do have a plan, you know where you're going, but you've learned along the way, because, this is startup number 5. You know that sometimes there needs to be a plan B, or guess what? The whole thing, you just start again.
Correct.
Could you start again?
No.
Right.
No, and I've said
this.
This is it. And I've said that, and I've never said that before, not through Danny, not through Rua, not through Smart Global, not through Stimuli. I've never said that this is it. This is it. This is my creme de la creme. No, this is it. I just, do you know what? I'm 43 now, and if this doesn't work, I need to go and get a job so I can get my finances in order.
It's going to work.
Oh, no, it is.
It really is.
I know it is, yeah.
And, it's of its time now, and you're absolutely right. I think that focus on the individual as well is where it needs to be.
100%.
There's no doubt that we have a mental health global pandemic, and we've got to start looking after and supporting people. Now, before I let you leave today, I ask everybody the same question. The purpose of this podcast, the listeners will know, is to inspire existing business owners and those ambitious entrepreneurs out there to grow their business by offering an insight into the success of businesses such as Dara and Co. But what advice would you give to someone who may have a business idea but have no idea where to begin or are unsure as to whether the risk is worth taking? And I know you've mentioned this already.
Yeah, so if depending on where you're based, look at the local enterprise, look at the Invest in I, look at the local supports there first and foremost. I think the biggest thing that we did, and the biggest learning with Dara in particular, is the feasibility. So do your feasibility study before you give it up. Go and actually see if there is a market demand. Go and do a complete competitor analysis. Do your SWOT analysis. Old Naomh would have said, just do it, just go, skip up the hill and it'll be gorgeous. No, do your research, feasibility, go and actually spend a bit of time to see what's out there, because you do your due diligence first and then you'll know whether or not there's a problem to be solved.
And there, folks, speaks the expert. She knows what she's talking about. Thank you so much, Naomh, for being here today.
Delighted. Thanks for having me.
Love to have you here for longer, and I'm sure people have really enjoyed an insight into your journey and your honesty, and we really appreciate that too. So thanks everyone for tuning in and for joining myself and Naomh in the studio. Do join me next time for another fantastic episode of the Public Eye Podcast. This podcast was recorded in Granite Podcast Studio. Interested in starting up your own podcast but don't know how? Granite Podcast Studio can help. Record your podcast in our state-of-the-art studio, which is based in the heart of Newry City. Our studio has cutting-edge and user-friendly technology and can seat up to 4 people. We also provide an editing service for our team, using your guidance and editing notes to provide you with a flawless finished product, leaving your listeners wanting more. For more information on how you can get started, visit www.granitepodcaststudio.com.